find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
Yes.
Snappy. Ugh, so fresh. Crack it like a bone.
Ouch, that would hurt.
Oh no, was that your bone?
Yeah, you hit my bone, and it did hurt. Not it would hurt.
Oh, fuck, I'm sorry. 1 second, let's go get that fixed.
Put my bone back.
Oh my god, it's poking me now!
Ouch!
In olden days, a glimpse of femur was only for morbid dreamers, but you're not alone. Bring anything bones. Two goofy gals with deathly interest go on a skeleton inquest in your headphones. Anything bones.
Hello and welcome to Anything Bones. I'm Sophie, Lost Brotherhood Schwartz.
And I'm Katelyn Lizard Feet Heart.
Damn. So I've been trying to think of things that are like semi-related to my topic. Don't look back and listen to them now. I'm starting this now. That my middle names will be respective to my topics. But I don't want to hold you to that because I love the things that you come up with. Like Katelyn Lizard Feet Heart. Where does that come from?
Your thing started with an L.
Ah, okay.
L for lizard. That's how I was raised.
I have a question. This is a serious question for you, Katelyn. Are you or have you ever been a lizard?
Okay, true story. I did want a lizard really bad for like 1 month when I was maybe 10 or 11. I wanted a lizard so bad, and my mom was like, no, we're not getting a lizard. Like, we're just not. And instead she got me a Groovy Girls lizard in a fake cage.
Oh my god.
And it was both hilarious and just like brutal.
That is so early 2000s to get you a Groovy Girl lizard.
Oh, I loved Groovy Girls. I was like, hell yeah, my Groovy Girls got a lizard, but you know, the thing is though, I really got over it quickly and was like, yeah, I didn't want a lizard after all.
I mean, for sure, and perhaps your mother could have seen that coming, and that is perhaps why she reacted the way she did. But so, okay, as a direct foil to that, around that same age, maybe a little younger, yeah, probably a little younger, our neighbor, who was kind of like, we call him a neighborhood Hagrid, because, like, he was like a big guy, super friendly, and would, like, hide Easter eggs, like, in your backyard in, like, Easter time, but he would get the snakes out of your backyard, he would get the hornet's nest out of your backyard, any kind of pest problem he could kind of deal with, and did some, like, light gardening and stuff, and was just, like, a neighborhood guy, yeah, but, like, I think he had brought me, or, like, something connected to him that we had found a lizard that had, like, part of its tail, like, chopped off, and I was, like, intent on saving it and having it as my lizard. And my parents, like, went along with it and, like, got a little cage for the lizard, or, like, a little terrarium thing, and we bought the lizard, like, food and stuff. And I think the lizard lived maybe 2 more days until the lizard super beefed it, went hard to Beef City. Baby learned a little lesson about death.
It.
Yeah.
My lizard.
Yeah, but the lizard was named Johnny, and we did have a funeral for the lizard in the backyard.
This is so on brand.
I know. I can't believe I get to tell this story. But my brother, my saintly brother, who I'll remind all of you, has saved literal lives, would torture me by bringing up Johnny's name in conversation just to make me fucking cry and, like, get really sad. And I would, like, you know, hearkening back to, like, those emperor's funerals, like, the professional funeral wailers, I'd be like, Johnny, why would you bring that up? I'm still grieving Johnny to this day. Well, then it just became a bit, no matter how old I was, if he was like, Johnny, I'd be like, how could you do this to me right now? Like, just at my college graduation, Johnny. Oh, in public like this?
It's still not over in my mind.
It's not. The specter of Johnny crawling around with his half chopped off tail still scurries through my dreams.
Yeah, that's a lot. Maybe I'm glad I didn't have a lizard.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying your mother saved you so much heartache with the
Apparently.
Groovy Girls version. Yeah.
Okay, well, transitioning now into less lizard and more death. How about that?
I mean, Johnny's the perfect bridge, isn't he?
Yeah, he was once alive.
And now
And
he's
now
the mayor
he's
of
not.
Beef City, yeah.
Well, of course, I decided that I would go back in time to 1934 for this one. And I thought, I want to do something local and creepy. And I found a real weird case. I can't quite, it's called a lot of different things in my sources, but I'm going to call it the Erlands Point murders.
Ooh, Erlands Point. Are those people or places?
That's a place. I looked it up. It would be, you'd have to take a ferry to get there from Seattle, but it's not terribly far, except for the ferry. You could also go around, but it would take about an hour and a half.
I'll take the ferry any day. I like me a good boat.
Yeah. So it's not that far from where we're currently residing.
I have a question, though.
Yes.
Does the ferry also take you to 1934, or do you have to do that yourself?
It's a separate ferry. You have to pay an extra toll. You have to
God
switch
damn it.
ferries in the middle. It's crazy.
Oh, Washington State nickel and diming us every step of the way.
All right, so we're on March 31st, 1934, in, you guessed it, Bremerton, Washington.
Bremerton, Satan's armpit.
No, that's Burien.
That's Burien, yeah.
No, we're just kidding.
No disrespect to the great city of Burien.
No, Bremerton is where Erlands Point is. It's across the water from Seattle.
Ah.
So there's a bunch of fucking dogs just barking and howling for several days or hours. It's not really clear.
Okay, so several days or hours.
Yeah, it's not very clear, I'm telling you. It starts off with dogs and then the dogs are never mentioned again. I'll just spoil it for you.
Okay, the dogs are a framing device. Continue. I'll let the dogs go.
Thomas Sanders is trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. These dogs will not stop barking. He's in his neighborhood in Bremerton, and he finds 3 white poodles in a car parked outside his neighbor's garage. And he's like, what? The dogs are hungry, they're thirsty, they're freaking out because they've been in there for a while. Unclear how long. And so he gives them water and then I think maybe finds food for them and then goes over to the house and is like, well, what's going on? Why are these dogs so unkempt outside this house? This is so weird. And he notices that the house was totally dark, the doors are locked, and he peeps in through the window. He's not trying to be a creep or anything. He's just why are these dogs out here?
I mean, I think that's reasonable.
I don't know why I needed to clarify that, but
well, because you used the word peep.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I had to tell you why.
This is the only time it's okay to be... If you suspect a murder, it's okay to look into your neighbor's windows.
It's okay to be nosy if you think something is going on. And something is clearly going on. You wouldn't just leave all your dogs in a car for no reason.
No, I never leave my 3 matching white poodles in my car for no reason. I usually have a pretty good reason.
So this house that he's looking in is the home of Frank Flyder and his wife Anna. They are in their 40s and 50s. They were married just a few years earlier, and they're apparently known for their lively parties.
These people sound cool.
Unfortunately, upon looking in the window, their neighbor, Thomas Sanders, does see 2 bodies, apparently with their hands tied and blood everywhere. So he called the police.
Oh, we can't have anything, can we?
No, sorry, not on this podcast. Not when I start talking about crime.
Yeah, well, it's my fault for getting attached to the cool older couple who like to party.
Yeah. It sounds like a good time. So unfortunately, inside, it turned out there were 6 bodies inside. Yeah. So this couple, the Flighters, were in there. And then they had 4 guests also. Margaret and Eugene Chevenvert, quote, one-time vaudeville performers.
Oh.
Magnus Jordan, who was a retired Navy person, and Fred Bolcom, who was a bartender. And there
was a guy named Magnus?
Yeah.
Aw.
Dead.
Rip.
Okay, so this was a pretty brutal crime. I'm going to sum it up with as much information as you need, but as gentle as I can.
But not any more than we need.
Yeah. Oh, I should say my sources. My sources for this were historylink.org, an article from the Kitsap Sun, and then an article from the New York Daily News.
The Kitsap Sun, that's local.
Yeah, exactly. It's a local case, baby.
No, I just love that.
In the 30s. All right. Back to the brutal crime. Quote, all had been beaten with a hammer and a blackjack, and 2 were shot. The killer also slashed the throats of Mrs. Flighter and Bolcom. Except for Eugene Chevenvert, a large man who apparently put up a fight, the victims' hands were bound at the wrists and their mouths and eyes were covered with tape.
Oh, God.
Yeah, horrific.
Ugh, 1930s tape, too.
Yeah, just all around bad. Really scary and brutal and horrific. And the motive was clearly robbery because all their cash was missing, and 2 of Mrs. Flighters, there aren't 2 L's in that word. Flieder. Okay, Mrs. Flighters had 2 diamond rings, and they were missing too. The other thing, about this was that because the couple was known as, party folks, they like to have people over. They would apparently just invite anybody to come over to their, lavish parties. People thought that it was, somebody who knew them that had committed these crimes because they would know that there was going to be a lot of cash on hand, I guess, was the idea. So that was why they committed the crime, was to rob them.
I mean, that makes sense. If they, it seems planned if they were tying people up and they knew where the cash was and stuff. A rando might not do that.
Right, exactly. So the sheriff comes upon this scene and is like, oh shit. So he has to physically go to Seattle to get help from the Seattle Police Department.
Oh shit, hop on the ferry.
Gotta get on the ferry or drive a lot. I don't know what they were doing in the 30s, and I didn't look it up, but that's cars. Apparently what happened. Huh?
They had cars.
Okay, tight. I'm sure. Okay, so needless to say, the sheriff is gone, so he assigns a deputy to, guard the crime scene. You are getting what I'm trying to telepathily tell you.
This is never a good move. Crime scene security, up to, I would say, 2000, was, terrible. Terrible. I can only imagine what is going to happen now. Wait, can I guess?
Please.
Okay, everyone in town hears about this. They come to the house. The deputy is unable to stop them all from trampling the shit out of the crime scene. People take stuff, footprints everywhere, evidence fucked up, the whole shebang.
Yeah. You're mostly right. You're 85% right. Except the deputy actually charged everybody 25 cents to get in.
Deputy? You dirty fucking snake. What the fuck, guy?
Exactly. And apparently the crowd was about 150 people, so I'm going to quickly do some math.
Oh, yeah. Fuck.
Let's see how much he made. I didn't look this up beforehand.
Was it 25 cents in 1930s money or in our money?
I mean, yeah. So he would have made about $38 at least in 1930s money.
I want to see.
How much would that be now?
Yeah.
Are you on it? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, all right. That's about $655-ish.
Okay, not insignificant then.
Yeah.
But you didn't need to do it like that, dude. That's not the way. So these fucking people obviously trampled through the whole house. The bodies were still there.
Oh my god.
There were gum wrappers all over the floor, and apparently someone stole Anna Fliedler's stockings, off her body.
That's fucked. Guys, come
Hideous,
on.
Right? Are you kidding me? Why?
How? Ugh, people
How
are so
dumb
disgusting.
are you? Yeah.
I don't know.
What, like, goes through your mind when you're like, I'm gonna take that? Like, for what?
I don't know. Family heirloom to sell it to collectors. I don't know.
Ugh, yeah.
If that was really a thing then, probably. But, like, I don't know. People have always been kind of like, you know, we like true crime, but, like, I would not go to, like, you know, I wouldn't steal something from a crime scene.
No,
like,
I don't even want to go to a crime scene,
No.
let alone go into it and take something.
with the corpses still there.
Right, exactly. Like, it's just depraved. And I mean, I guess that's our, like, modern lens, but I think it's still pretty fucked up either way. I'm sure this wasn't, like, great. Everybody was like, this isn't awesome, right? Like,
No, I don't think that when he left the deputy in charge, he wanted him to, like, make it into a sideshow. I think he
No.
probably wanted him to, like, lock it down. But, like, I imagine he has the sheriff has to, like, go get the coroner and stuff. Like, so
they had to go all the way to Seattle to ask for help. So, I don't know.
I don't know, man. Traffic at that time, crazy.
Something happened, and then a bunch of people paid a quarter to see a crime scene. And of course, so after, like, this news got out, a bunch of photographers and reporters swarmed to the area. So when Seattle's chief of detectives, Luke May, comes, like, back on the ferry, he comes in with, like, a bunch of reporters, and I was like, what?
Oh shit, like, the reporters are also on the ferry?
It sounds like it. I mean, that's a better story, but it just seems like that's what happened.
I like that image of that. He's, like, squished between two guys with cameras, and they're like, hey, like, did you hear about the crime? And he's like, who?
Yeah.
Who? Yeah, who told you?
That should be a secret, actually.
Yeah, you shouldn't. Where are you guys going?
Yeah. So, Luke May, this guy, investigates the scene. There's not much to work with now. Like, he does apparently come up with some conclusions that are spot on. He is like, one of these attackers was a woman because there was a broken heel found at the scene and it didn't seem to belong to any of the female victims. There had to have been two people involved because one of them tied them up and the other one probably held them at gunpoint.
That makes sense.
But for 18 months, nothing happens. It's just, like, cold. And people, slowly start to forget. The police do not, apparently.
For once.
Yeah. So it's September 1935, and police arrest these two guys, Larry Paulos and Joe Naples, in Yakima.
Hey, Yakima!
Yeah, for a burglary that they committed in Seattle, apparently. And while they're staking out the, like, hideout, they also arrest one of the guy's wife.
One of his 4 wives, yes.
One of... Peggy, the wife, is also, like, brought into custody. I can't flip and talk. So this guy, Larry Paulos, he... quote, he is a 3-time loser, facing charges of assault, burglary, and being a habitual criminal.
Damn. What kind of life do you have to lead for, like, for the charges against you to, I mean, those are specific, but also to be like, you are a 3-time loser.
3-time loser. Eat it.
This is a triple loser side.
Yeah. So, Larry, this guy Larry, who's married to Peggy, just want you to remember these two.
Wait, would that make her name Peggy Paolo?
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty good. Sorry.
No, that's cool. So Larry is facing all these charges, and he is trying to get, like, a reduced prison sentence. So he identifies a man that murdered a special investigator in Oregon.
Okay.
So he points the finger at this guy, Leo Hall. And then when Peggy finds out that her husband has told the police about Leo Hall, she's afraid that he's going to try and kill her. Leo Hall is. So she immediately goes to the cops, and she is she just spills everything about these Erlands Point murders. If you had trouble following that, I did too. Basically, this kind of happens by accident. Like, they arrest these guys for burglary, and then the wife is like, basically gives up her involvement in this murder.
Because
one way or the other.
Because they give up the name of another guy who she thinks will come after her.
Apparently, another source of mine said that she, like, went to the cops because she felt badly about the whole thing, which is also a story that I believe. One way or the other, this woman ends up in police custody, and she very quickly confesses to being involved in the Erlands Point murders, but she doesn't say that she was responsible for it. So Peggy points the finger at this guy, Leo Hall. He is the murderer that killed these 6 people near Bremerton. And so police are already looking for him in the death of that special investigator in Oregon that I mentioned. That was kind of just confusing and thrown in there. But they find him in Portland and arrest him for possession of a loaded gun.
Okay. But
one way or the other, he's in custody and he is brought back up to Seattle. I know that drive well.
Yeah, that's your home turf.
Yeah. So anyway, at this point, Peggy is telling the police that she met Mrs. Flyter because she's a waitress at a restaurant that Mrs. Flyter and her friends go to a lot. The Flyters invited her to some of their, like, fancy parties, and basically I don't know if she went or not, but she did know that they had a lot of money. And apparently she told Leo Hall about this. Leo Hall is sometimes referred to as her former boyfriend. He's sometimes referred to as just like her buddy, or like her boyfriend's buddy. I don't know. It's kind of unclear what the relationship is. But basically she tells him, hey, these people are loaded. And he's like, okay, well, we're going to go hold them up at gunpoint right now. And she is apparently either unaware of what's going on or is being held up at gunpoint and is not a willing participant.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of unclear. This is kind of like the Alias Grace case that I just covered, where it's like, what's going on here?
Yeah, and because, I mean, the trail of evidence was so, like, fucked up that, like, it's hard to take her story and then, like, or all these various stories and, like, match them up to any sort of, like, concrete, like, objective truth. Exactly, yeah. There are crime scene photos, but they were the whole thing was trampled through. Like, we don't know what it actually looked like right after the crime was committed. Yeah, because knowing these fucking dillweeds, if they are gonna steal stockings off of a dead woman, they're also likely to move the bodies around, like, you know, fucking touch with everything. You know? Yeah. Can't super be trusted.
So apparently Leo makes Peggy put on, you know, a mask and gloves, and they break in through the kitchen. And then they break in, and the Flighters are having a party. Like, everybody's playing Pinochle.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at Pinochle.
I know, I had to, like, really, when I saw that in writing, I had to really think about how to say Pinochle. Because I don't know what it, like, entails. Sorry.
That's fine.
Anyway, so apparently Peggy tied the people up while Leo held the gun on them. At some point, Mrs. Flyter said she wasn't feeling well, so Leo took her into the bedroom, gave her a glass of water, and then he did kill her.
Jesus.
He started beating another person, and that's when Peggy was like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. And as she's running, allegedly, Leo shoots a gun at her and misses. And she, like, just is running along the side of the road in Bremerton. She hides in ditches when cars go by, just in case it's Leo. But apparently she asked him a few days later, like, why'd you do that? And he tells her, I had to because one of them recognized you.
I call bullshit on that.
It's very, it could be untrue, and it probably is.
I mean, maybe, but, like, I don't know what kind of mask. Did it say what kind of mask? Because, of course, my 2022 brain
didn't at all.
Immediately was like, oh, a face mask.
Yeah, I think it was like a ski mask situation.
I mean, I would assume something a little more full coverage.
Yeah. The other thing that was found out is that Leo told Peggy that he and one of the victims, Eugene, had this fight because Eugene broke free of his restraints, and he, hit Leo with a broken beer bottle, and then later on somebody would see him with bandages all over his head, and then a doctor testified that he gave him stitches, so, this ended up being something useful. This ended up being, one of the nails in his coffin.
Finally.
Yeah. So, there's enough evidence, they go to trial, they actually get tried together for the murder. I think this, in one of my sources it said they only charged them with one person's murder, which, whether that happened or not, that's I think I remember that's an old legal trick just in case it doesn't work so that they can charge them with another murder.
Yeah, that old bitch double jeopardy.
Yeah. The trial lasts for 10 days, and I think 60 witnesses are called, but in the end they find Leo Hall guilty, and they acquit Peggy Paulos.
Interesting. That's very interesting.
One way or the other, it doesn't seem like she did it. But it still is kind of suspicious why she was involved, why she was there. It's a bit strange.
I don't know. These are the most interesting people to me. These people who you can't quite tell to what level they were actually involved. Because I could believe it either way, honestly. I could believe her being totally coerced into this thing and being holy shit, how did I end up in this deadly stick up? But I could also see her being hey, what if we rob these guys?
Yeah, because she seems to be the one that had the connection to them. So it's did she just let that slip? Or was it it's very weird.
Unclear, but we weren't there. We'll never know.
Exactly. So Leo Hall is taken to the state penitentiary in Walla Walla, Washington. He and his attorney, who has the last name Butts.
Okay, all right.
I'm not going to say anything else because I'm an adult. They do appeal his conviction, and they file new motions for a new trial based on new evidence. It's all denied. So he's scheduled to be executed at 12:10 on September 11th, 1936.
Ugh.
But apparently his mom flies to Olympia and pleads with the governor for a stay of execution. It's not granted, but what is granted is a stay of execution until 2 p.m. so she can go back to Walla Walla and see her son before he dies. And then this attorney, the Butts guy, he also tries to get a stay of execution. And then when that's refused, they allow him to wait until 11 p.m. on that day to be executed, I guess, so that the lawyer can get back there.
That is a stressful day.
Chaos. But it seems like just the chaos of the case kind of, and the whole thing had to end this way. It seems like something had to be just dead wrong.
Yeah, the tone of it all has to be like a swirling tornado.
Yes. But anyway, on September 11th, 1936, around 11 o'clock p.m., with over 100 witnesses, which was the most that had ever come to an execution at the Walla Walla State Penitentiary, he was hung and pronounced dead soon after, obviously. This is really sad. Reporters tracked down Peggy because she moved to Portland and was just waitressing to support herself. And apparently reporters were berating her, trying to ask her how she felt about the execution. And she responded, quote, "How do I feel?" She wailed through the closed door. "My God, how would anyone feel? Oh, I wish I were dead. Please go away."
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, so it's sad. I mean, if in fact she was coerced into this, that's really fucking sad. If she was a willing participant, that's an Oscar-worthy performance.
Seriously, I mean, like I said, we'll never know, and these are why these are the most interesting cases. I could see it both ways. Exactly.
One other theory that I'm going to end on, just because it's interesting, it's really more of a side note. An article from the Kitsap what's it called? The Kitsap Sun was released in 1999, and it was about this local author named Don Moody, who is just like researching this case like crazy, apparently. And he thinks that it may have been like Leo was a hitman hired to kill these people because of a connection to organized crime. Allegedly, according to this article, quote, a week before the murders, the Flighters had sought a license to open a card room and cabaret in Seattle. When they heard the price corrupt officials were charging, Anna Flighter had a fit. The couple decided to open the business in Bremerton instead. It just seems awfully interesting that a week before the murders, there was this refusal to pay money to organized crime, Moody said. It's not real, it doesn't quite work for me, but it's an interesting theory, so I thought I'd add that in.
I mean, we always love the sensational story, right? Like, you know, I would love for it to be a mob hit.
That's the answer, yeah.
We'll never know.
We will never know.
Yeah, the ferry to 1934 has left. But I'll tell you one thing that did fucking shock me. We're having public executions in 1934?
Yeah, in this very state.
In this fucking state? Well, I mean, people forget how red Washington is.
Mm-hmm.
But that was wild to me. This whole thing is wild to me. These cases that get this, like, what I think we should call the trample treatment of, like, you know, these unsecure crime scenes where the morning after the crime usually, or like, you know, several hours later, all of these people come trampling through. You know, they couldn't do DNA at the time, but at least they had, you know, rudimentary fingerprint stuff. They could look at how things were laid out in the house. There's definitely stuff that could have probably helped them solve the case, you know, with evidence, but I think it's hilarious that they just fucking got lucky.
Yeah. It somehow or other, they figured it out.
Yeah, damn. Wowzers bowsers, Katelyn.
Yeah, some good old-fashioned Washington State true crime.
We love a local story. We love getting the local scoop.
That's right. Erlands Point, where are you at?
Erlands Point. Well, I think the time-traveling ferry is leaving right now. So if we want to do an ad, we can go catch it.
Yeah, we'll just be right back.
All
okay,
right.
guys, bye.
Cannot be saved. Follow me,
Welcome to the Ugly Radio on the Podmoth Network, a lo-fi sci-fi audio theater anthology series made for late nights and strong drinks. Join us monthly as we broadcast a pirate signal across time and space, featuring stories, songs, and frequencies from a rotating list of voice actors, writers, storytellers, and musicians. If you're looking for high-quality science fiction, skin-crawling horror, and other genre fiction, listen to The Ugly Radio on the Podmoth Network, now available wherever you get your podcasts. The Ugly Radio. See you in the void.
I'm sorry. We tried to sneak onto the time-traveling ferry. We didn't have enough money to pay the stupid toll. Don't kick us off.
I'm sorry, I thought it would be a quarter. I didn't realize it was $4,000.
Ugh. Inflation on the fucking time-traveling ferry really gets me in this fucking city.
In this economy, you really should respect it. Anyway, we're, you know.
We're standing. We're soapboxing here about the
Get
fucking...
off the soapbox and tell me something.
All I'm saying is the fees are too damn high.
Yeah, preach.
All right. So this story is kind of, it's tangentially related to ferries because we're going to be talking about another island.
Oh, okay.
This is another island that I would put in the category of like Pirate Island or Isla de San Michel, which was the very first topic that I covered on the show, which is a cemetery island in Venice. We're going to be talking about Tiber Island. and some very bony happenings that occurred there.
Hells yeah.
All right, some sources for you. You gotta eat them, it's good for you. We've got Atlas Obscura, Isola Tiberna, .it/index,
Oh my god.
Wikipedia twice, historytoday.com, history.co.uk, mentalfloss, and medium.com. So, Tiber Island. This island is a river island, which is new for us. We've done your good old-fashioned ocean islands. We've done some islands within, like, bays and coves. But we got a river island today.
Seems different.
Yeah! Well, it's interesting because it's the only island in the Tiber River that's, like, within Rome. And it's pretty small. It's a, like, little kind of boat-shaped island,
Huh.
and it's about 890 feet long and 220 feet wide. And it is just kind of wedged in the river with 2 bridges on either side of it.
Cute.
Yeah, it's adorable. So, legends, there are many legends that surround this island because it's been there since antiquity. One of the legends on how it is formed is that after the fall of the hated tyrant Tarquinius Superbus in 510 BC, pissed off Romans threw his body into the Tiber, and then his body kind of settled and decomposed to the bottom where like dirt and silt kind of mixed with it, and it formed this island.
Okay.
Obviously, that did not happen, but...
Probably not, but the image is chilling.
Yeah, I like that one. Is a lot more on brand for us than this other one, which is a little more boring, is that people gathered up wheat and grain that was supposed to be for, like, their despised ruler, but instead of giving it to the ruler, they threw it in the river, Boston Tea Party style.
Oh, yeah, you want it? Go and get it.
Yeah, exactly. And that became the foundation of this island.
Cool.
But in ancient times, pre-Christianity, Tiber Island was kind of avoided by a lot of people because it had kind of negative connotations around, like, whether it be formed from a dead body or kind of the waste place of revolution. People kind of didn't want to go there. And so criminals and people who were ill started to kind of gather on the island. And after a while, they decided to build a temple on this island.
Okay, so they, like, hate it, love it, suddenly.
Yeah, suddenly there's a switch somewhere. Well, we'll talk a little bit about the switch, actually.
Oh, okay.
So the temple that was to be built on this island was to Asclepius, who was the Greek god of medicine and healing.
Cool. We like that.
Yeah, remember that. So one of the myths about the building of this temple kind of goes as such, which is that in like 293 BC, there was a big plague in Rome. And after they kind of consulted with an oracle, the Roman Senate was instructed to go build a temple to the god of healing. And they're like, go get a statue for the temple. And so a bunch of, guys to form a little delegation to go get this statue, get on a boat and go sailing off. So a tradition is that they were like, before we go, we better grab a snake.
Oh! Yeah. Okay.
They got a snake from a temple and then they put it on the ship, and it immediately chilled out and was like hanging out on the mast, and they were like, that's a good sign. And so they're just, they pick up the statue and they're, totally down the river, and suddenly the snake is like, oh? and kind of like picks his head up and is like, aha, and starts like slithering off of the boat, and then slither his snaky little body onto this island and is like, this is a good place for your temple. And they were like, hell yeah, let's do what the snake wants. Let's build the temple here.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Why
love
not do
this.
what the snake wants?
Why not? I mean, Katelyn, are you going to look at the snake and tell the snake that the snake is wrong?
Probably not at that time, no. I think I have the confidence now, but maybe not then.
Not when you were younger. In 293 BC when you were younger.
Yeah.
So this also turned out to be a great place for the temple because it was a place where they would treat people who were affected by the plague, and because it was separated from the city by the river, it was a great place to hold sick people so they wouldn't get more people sick. Which they didn't entirely understand at the time, but, you know, was good anyway, right? Sometimes
nice
we stumble into these things, right?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's fast forward a little bit in Tiber Island's history a little bit. Let's go to the 1700s.
Cool.
So, in the 1700s, a very special brotherhood would start to call this island home. Now, the name I'm going to read to you is the full name of this brotherhood. Are you ready?
Okay.
This is the Brotherhood of the Devotees of Jesus at Calvary and Holy Lady Mary of Sorrows in Relief of the Holy Souls in Purgatory.
That is a mouthful.
Yeah, that's the name of the group.
You can't, like, shorten that at all. Like, there's no way.
Well, people would call them the Sacconi Rossi, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. And that was for short. So this institution was founded by a group of young Christians who wanted to help souls who were suffering in purgatory and to support the deceased bodies that would wash up in the Tiber River.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
They wore these, like, red hooded capes, which began to be known as Sacconi Rossi, which is basically like red sack. So they called them the Red Sacks. They were the Red Sacks.
It's sounding more and more Game of Thrones the longer it goes on.
Oh yeah, we're getting into that. So like I said, the main goal of this brotherhood, this religious brotherhood, was to give dignity and burial to abandoned bodies, particularly the ones that would wash up in the Tiber River having drowned. And they would bury these bodies. What they would do is that they would bury these bodies at night after like a torch-lit processional across the island. Their headquarters was at the Franciscan Missionary College beside the Basilica of St. Bartholomew, which was built above the temple that I talked about earlier. The ruins of the temple of the Greek god of healing. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we built on these old ruins and we made it awesome again.
Hell yeah, we did. And in 1784, they got an acknowledgement by the Pope, which is pretty big.
Yeah.
And they got permission to make a crypt cemetery underneath these, like, ruins. And so that's one of the things that first attracted me to this island, is this underground crypt, which is mainly for the brothers themselves, but I would say that they probably also contributed. There's so many bones down here, it would not surprise me if they also contributed bones from the deceased that they honored out of the river. I'm going to send you some pictures of those right now.
Okay.
So here are some pictures of that underground crypt that I was talking about. Like you'll see...
What?
Yeah, what are we thinking?
This looks like a tiny chandelier made out of bones, and I'm obsessed with it.
Right? It's like the mini version of that one in the Czech Republic, I think?
Yeah, that is bizarre. It's like not a chandelier, though. It's just like an ornament.
It's like a hanging sculpture.
Oh my god, this is the creepiest place.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Look at that. Do you see the one that's got the red in it with the skeleton that's like lying like prostrate on the floor, like in the middle of the chamber?
Why are we doing this?
Because Christians are extra, man. Like,
it's so scary. Oh my god.
But like as Katelyn's kind of describing a little bit, there is like what looks like a chandelier, but is really, I think, just like a hanging collection of bones, along with, you know, countless bones on the floor. Another picture where you can see kind of a more organized, like, niches with, like, skulls and what looks like, it's probably femurs.
Yeah, that's what it looked like about halfway down.
Yeah. And then there's this last picture of this very occult-looking chamber with this skeleton that is in what I would probably guess is one of these red sack-type robes, lying on the floor, face up, kind of almost their body kind of twisted in the middle of what looks like sort of like a worship space. But when I saw these pictures, I was immediately, you know me, I'm fucking sold.
I'm hooked, yeah.
I'm hooked. I'm line and sinker hooked. Like, so I had to investigate further. They did this for a good long while of claiming these bodies and also burying their own dead in these more, you know, extremely intentional ways down in the crypt. But unfortunately, this became a bit of a problem because there were a lot of people kind of washing up in the Tiber River, so they did get a bit overwhelmed with bodies, and it started to become a little bit of a charnel house, i.e. just like a place where bodies kind of hang before they can be buried. There was also a lot of flooding going on because remember we're in the middle of a river that changes with weather, so you get a lot of flooding going on, and in addition to that, there was an epidemic of cholera hanging around at the time.
Good.
So
we were just good.
No, bad, very bad. Bad cholera, bad.
Yeah, don't come back.
Get out of here, cholera. Don't you know this is a holy place? But cholera did not know that, and it started to become a real problem. So the Pope, different Pope,
whoa,
what was like, stop it with the burials. You can't do it anymore. You have to send everyone over to Verano. And they were like, are you serious? And that's kind of like our whole thing. And he's like, yeah, I know it's your whole thing, but tough shit, it's getting gross over there. Which, like, really sucked, because that was the brothers' whole kind of purpose, was, like, bringing a good death to people, and we can relate to that, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, I felt a kinship with these brothers. And a siblingship, eh? Brothers, sisters. So, final kind of nail in the coffin for this brotherhood's, death positive practices, was French troops sent by Napoleon in 1849, who completely damaged this crypt, turned it into a dormitory, and and as we kind of covered a little bit, again, hearkening back to the Isla San Michel episode, Napoleon was like, all cemeteries and hospitals and convents are all, like, closed. This happened on February 25th, 1871. They were just like, shut it all down, we're going to reorganize everything. And so these monks had really, really lost their purpose. And their brotherhood continued, but went extinct in the 1960s, basically.
Yeah.
But in 1983, the Venerable Brotherhood of Santa Maria del Orto decided to started restoring their custom of bringing dignity to the dead of the Tiber River. They started trying to bury people who were unclaimed in the river and also in natural disasters. So they kind of went and picked up their mission a little bit.
Yeah, like hundreds of years later.
Yeah, which is kind of nice.
That's really cool.
And then in 1988, the order Ospedaliero de San Giovanni de Dio Frate Bene Fratelli took over the church space and crypt to preserve it and ensure its survival for future generations.
Cool.
Which
That's
is why
awesome.
we have pictures of it today. Yes.
I was going to say, this must be... I mean, you probably can't visit it, can you?
Oh, you can.
Oh, shit. Oh, my God. I want to go.
Bitch, I found this looking at trips to Italy. I was
oh, my God.
I was like, dream trip. If I could go to Italy, where would I, I'd never been. I was looking at trips on Atlas Obscura where they, plan all the shit for you. It was thousands of dollars. Not affordable. I mean, for me. But, anyway, this was part of that. And I was like, yes, please. Yeah. I was like, this whole island fucking slaps. Yeah. Oh. So, eventually, the Saccaroni Rossi actually was able to be reformed.
Oh, cool.
They're formed as a new group, and now every November 2nd at sunset, they have a mass, and they do their, candlelight processional that they, used to do back in the day. And then they go and, place a little, wreath in the river to honor the dead.
Oh, very cool.
It is very cool. All right. We are coming to the end, but this island still has one last trick up its sleeve.
Oh, do tell.
All right. So the last trick of this island is its hospital, which we'll talk a little bit about later. As was fitting of its original purpose as a temple place for helping those with the plague, there was eventually founded a hospital on this little tiny island.
What? With the crypt right next to it?
Hell yeah, bitch. On the other side.
Okay.
So this hospital is named Frate Bene Fratini, which is a phrase that kind of roughly translates to, you do well, brothers, for God's sake. So, a place of service, right?
Yeah.
This hospital was founded by a couple of offshoots of this guy, Saint John of God, who was very he found his own hospital in Granada, Spain, and then he taught other people to go off and build their own institutes of health.
Cool.
So 15 of his devotees went and settled on Tiber Island and started doing medical care for plague outbreaks, starting in 1656-ish. And the hospital was going strong until the capture of Rome by Italy, which is kind of funny to think about.
God.
This is kind of funny because in 1878, the hospital's management was dissolved. And then 3 individuals bought the hospital for, quote, private industry and interest. These 3 mysterious men were actually 3 friars who acted as buyers in disguise because there was a law against religious hospitals. So they dressed up in disguise to go buy the hospital back.
God damn. That's wild.
It is pretty wild. And then by 1892, all the old staff was back.
Okay.
Nothing happened.
Sure.
Fast forwarding a little bit to the 1940s. On this island, there is found an extremely rare disease. So, Syndrome K was found on this island, and it was supposedly a neurological illness, and the symptoms included convulsions, dementia, paralysis, and ultimately death from asphyxiation.
Oh, God. That's hideous.
Yeah. At the same time as this happening, World War II is going down hardcore.
Oh, my God.
As we know, between 1941 and 1945, Hitler's Nazi Germany murdered about 6 million Jews, which is about 2/3 of the European Jewish population at the time. This is, of course, the Holocaust. This is important because not only were Jews in Eastern Europe persecuted, but they were persecuted in Italy as well. During World War II, between 8,000 and 9,000 Italian Jews died during the Holocaust. So, going into this history a little bit, under the Italian fascist government, Benito Mussolini in 1938, they passed a bunch of laws that discriminated against Jewish people. But it wasn't until 1943, after the Nazis come in and occupy the country, that Italian Jews start being deported to concentration camps. So while this is happening, there are Jewish ghettos being set up all over Italy, where the Jewish people are basically sequestered from the rest of the population and forced to live in areas that were dirty and dangerous and subject to so much violence. What does this have to do with Tiber Island, though? Well, in October of 1943, Nazis began to raid Jewish ghettos that were near Tiber Island. And as the Jews were fleeing, many doctors were like, hey, come to the hospital. And so they did. And there were several doctors, including Vittorio Sacerdoti and Giovanni Borromeo, who came up with the plan to diagnose them with the fictional disease, Syndrome K.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it sounded pretty bad because it was just everything all at once.
It was every bad thing ever. So this disease, of course, is completely fake. And basically, in 2016, in an interview with an Italian newspaper, La Stampa, Dr. Oracini, who was one of these doctors who helped shelter Jews during this time, he kind of explained their plan. Quote, "We created those papers for Jewish people as if they were ordinary patients. And at the moment when we had to say what disease they suffered, it was Syndrome K, meaning I am admitting I am a Jew, as if he or she were ill, but they were all healthy. The idea to call it Syndrome K, like Kelsingring or Kapler, was mine." So these two last names, Albert Kelsingring, he was a Nazi commander who helped to manage Nazis' occupation of Italy. And the other guy, SS Chief Herbert Kapler, was responsible for a mass killing of 335 Italian Jews. So they were like, who are the most deadly fucking people that we can think of? The worst pieces of shit. Syndrome K. We're sick with these fascist bastards.
Yeah.
Which I just love. So this disease was created by Giovanni Borromeo, who was the hospital's head physician, with the help of a bunch of other doctors. And they were able to shelter Jews in this way. Borromeo himself was like an avowed anti-fascist. And before he worked at this hospital on Tiber Island, he had been offered like the head position in 2 other hospitals. But if he had taken those positions, he would have had to like become a member of the fascist party. And so he said, fuck you guys. I'm going to go work on Tiber Island. I don't give a shit about your stupid fascist regime.
Hell yeah.
And he was very much known as a person who did not discriminate against anyone for like their religion. He hired many Jewish doctors. So the fun part about this is that doctors had to make this look convincing because the whole point was to drive the Nazis away.
Right.
So they had the refugees stay in special rooms called Syndrome K rooms. And when Nazis would come around, they would be like, everybody act super sick. And so like everyone in these rooms would start hacking and coughing and like having fits and like really selling it. And this freaked the Nazis the fuck out. They went running. They did not want to go.
Goodbye.
Yeah. And they basically gave it all the worst symptoms. Like I said, it gives you seizures, convulsions, death, asphyxiation, all the worst. And it completely worked.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There were also several children among these people. So they also, these refugees, so they also had the children hacking and coughing as well, which is cute in kind of a dark way.
Yeah, definitely.
So we don't know the exact numbers of how many Jewish people they were able to save using this scheme, but somewhere between 25 and 100 Jewish refugees that they were able to protect in this way after the war. And this included one of the doctor's 10-year-old cousins.
Oh.
So after the war, Dr. Borromeo died at age 62 in 1961, and he ended up passing away in his own hospital, which I think is kind of fitting. And it wasn't until about 50 years after the war that these life-saving actions were actually revealed. Nobody knew, for all that time, nobody knew what they did. And they were, of course, honored. Borromeo was posthumously recognized as, quote, righteous among nations by Yad Vashem, which is a World Holocaust Remembrance Center, because his work with the Jews was not just confined to this one scheme. He also transferred many Jewish patients from other hospitals in ghettos to his own hospital to receive better treatment. The hospital had been a haven for Jews leading up to the war as well. In 2016, the hospital itself was recognized as a, quote, house of life by the International Raoul Wallenberg Foundation, which advocates on behalf of Holocaust survivors. And so to mark this occasion of this, the hospital receiving this great honor, one of the doctors, Orsini, who was 96 at the time, gave an interview, and one of his quotes was, quote, the lesson of my experience was that we have to act not for the sake of self-interest, but for principles. Anything else is shame. As we know, these doctors were in great danger doing this. If they had been found out for what they had been doing, it would have been certain death for all of them. But they all knew that what they were doing was right. And I think, in light of all of the political turmoil that we're kind of facing in our nation right now, with the attack on reproductive rights and reproductive justice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think people need to remember to act on principle. And the principle of the fact is that, if this ban on abortion goes through, it's not just about, aborting a pregnancy from a fun night out. It's, pregnancies that are life-threatening, pregnancies that result out of sexual assault. When I say to act on the principle, I already donate to Planned Parenthood monthly. I'm going to be doubling that. If there's protests you want to get out to, I encourage you to do so and do so safely. But as I was researching Tiber Island, I thought about the strength that these doctors had. And, if we can borrow a little bit of that strength to stand up for reproductive justice, that would be amazing. Because we need to take a little bit of the strength from that temple of healing and medicine to lead us through with a clear mind on this one. I know this was a longie, but this island just intrigued me from A to Z.
Yeah, and it had some repercussions today. That was beautifully said. And I think it goes without saying that a ban on abortions from the Supreme Court doesn't mean that abortions won't happen. It just means that safe abortions will be restricted. And so it's just going to further marginalize people that are already in the margins. So it's just not, it's really disheartening. I think Soph and I have both been having hard weeks, and I think the news has a little bit to do with that, because it's just so discouraging to realize that you're only viewed as a vessel if you have a uterus.
Yeah. It's,
by some people, not everybody, but,
Not by everybody, but, I heard it said, this is not just, a quote-unquote women's issue. It goes a little bit without saying on this podcast, but I'll say it, of course, that, not all women have uteruses and not all uteruses belong to women. But this is an issue that affects us all. Because, this overreach in personal rights is something that will end lives because of unsafe abortions and because of pregnancies that threaten the life of the pregnant person. So if you can find an abortion fund to donate to, or talk to your representative, call your congressperson and yell at them, whatever can be done.
I saw on TikTok that somebody was sending a bunch of hangers to the Supreme Court.
I mean, do what you gotta do. I would like to... I'm not going to say it here.
Yeah, this has been a difficult week, but we love you, boneheads. Try and take care of yourselves. We're gonna get through this.
Yeah, do at least one nice thing for yourself this weekend if you can.
And...
Voyage.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. We love you.
Thanks for listening to Anything Bones. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Anything Bones Podcast, or email us at anythingbonespodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you to Nick Kruger for our spooky music and Stephen Vetteroff
At Chubby Scrubby on Twitter.
for our jazzy vocals, and thank you to Camilla Franklin
At Camilla Strader on Instagram.
for our beautiful bony artwork. Please rate, review, and subscribe.
Bad cholera, bad.
Yeah. Don't come back.
Get out of here, cholera. Don't you know this is a holy place?